We're getting started. Facebook Live. Fun at 4 with Quilt Beginnings in Columbus, Ohio. I like giving you guys something really pretty to look at while you're waiting for us to all get here, which shouldn't be more than another minute or two. This sample is so gorgeous. This is a Jason Yenter Floor Graphics 5. Jill just finished the sample. It's not quilted yet, but boy, do I love it. Isn't that gorgeous? Thought I'd flip around and say hi. Hello, everybody. Here, I'll turn around so you see that beautiful quilt behind me. There it is. Oh, yeah. It's so pretty. I think everybody needs to make one of those. You guys up for some strip piecing? I think strip piecing is really good. Today's topic is with Pam Churches. So this is Kathy in Columbus, Ohio at Quilt Beginnings. We're doing a Facebook Fun at 4. And I always like to start with some beautiful quilt. I'm going to flip it around again so you can just look at the quilt. Oh, it's so much better than just looking at me. Anyway, this is our Kit of the Week. And the theme of this week's presentation is incorporating embroidery into your quilting. So simple ways to incorporate embroidery and regular quilting projects, even like this one. So we have a very special guest today. Come on over, Miss Pam. We're in the back of the building and we're standing apart from each other. So we're going to be, there she is. Hey.
No surprise that it's about embroidery because I'm doing it, right?
We know if Pam gets invited, it's embroidery.
So anyways, Kathy asked me if we could just address some ways that people can do embroidery, like what is embroidery besides just doing monograms. So anyways, I'm going to come back to this quilt in a minute because after I get finished showing you some ideas, I'm hoping that you'll be inspired and maybe you'll already think of some ways to do this. But anyways, one of the basic quilts, and this quilt was a sample done by, I think, Libby Van Treese.
Yes, Libby Van Treese. This is our start quilting.
This is our basic quilting. So even beginner quilters, we all made this log cabin quilt. And so one of the things we do to quilt this is we stitch in the ditch between the 12 blocks, but we also use some embroidery. So this is on an embroidery machine, and this just tacks all 3 layers together. And beginner quilters, they really love to see, ooh, wow, embroidery, because the machine does it all by itself. They're not having to, the stitch in the ditch, let's face it, right? We've got to keep that stitch in the ditch foot in the ditch and guide everything. But here, this happens all by itself. So even if you wanted to remake a very quick quilt, you could do the log cabin quilt. You can even make it king size. And any of the quilting patterns that are done on your embroidery machine, you can do in here. Just a really quick way to quilt your quilt. So anyways, I know a lot of us, and I know we send our quilts out to our long arm quilters and we're like, oh, I really want to finish everything by myself. So this is an easy way to do it, or you can come in and we can get you on a long arm machine, no problem. So anyways, that's that one. Sorry, they're all over here.
Pam has lots and lots of samples. If you know Pam,
it's like Pam's trunk show.
It's a trunk show, and we love that.
Okay, this one is an Anita Good Design quilt, and so when we do Anita Good Design quilts, and this one happens to be, it was supposed to be red work, and they actually did it in blue, and I did it with the brown fabrics. But most of the time, when we buy a quilt pattern, so you go to Anita Good Design and you purchase this pattern, they have a quilt already detailed for you. I think this one I added an inner border and an outer border, and I just did some stippling here. This little flower design was just a little design that was built in on one of my machines. But this would be a really easy way to take your embroidery blocks, sew them together with a little bit of sashing, and then you could do any of the little motifs, because all of your embroidery machines come with small motifs. And you just put a little motif right here at your cornerstones, and some of them have borders. So if you look in your embroidery designs on your embroidery machine, most of them have a category of borders, and you could just do a quick little border down here. So again, it's just a quick way to incorporate embroidery in your quilt. This is very basic. This one is just squares, all cut to the same size, sashing blocks, and on this one I specifically added cornerstones because if I had a long row, I would have to do some kind of precise positioning to keep making these borders go in the same direction. But if I do a little cornerstone, it breaks up the quilting and it's just moving my hoop. So very easy to do, very quick, and of course red work patterns stitch out really quick. So there's that one. This is a current pattern that we have right now at Quilt Beginnings. And what I really like about this one, we have fat quarter kits cut to make this, but this one had the embroidery already in it. So you can purchase this as a CD, and it has just some, I mean, it looks like red work. You could do it in multiple colors. We do have fat quarter packs cut for this one, but what's really nice, can you see it close up?
Mm-hmm.
What's really nice about this one was we stitched out very quickly these embroidery designs, and you can see that you could create your own embroidery designs in here. But we do have the CD, I think it's called Blue Goose. You got it, Katie? Blue Goose. And we've got fat quarter kits already cut for it. If you don't have an embroidery machine, there's a hand embroidery pattern, and you could obviously just, you know, do the hand embroidery in these little areas.
There was a question on your last quilt. Did
Yes.
you stitch your sashing before you put it all together or after you put it all together?
After I put it all together.
Okay.
After I put it all together. And I was able to do that very easily on my Destiny. The sashing was just done with stippling, but I could have done any one of my borders that would fit in that particular space.
Just want to show off the lovely fat quarter bundles.
Oh, nice job, Vanna.
Yes, so we do have these on our featured products page on quiltbeginnings.com. Click on products, click on featured, and you'll see some of the patterns and kits that we've got featured today.
Okay.
Oh, just in time. Happy Valentine's Day, ladies. Happy Valentine's Day.
So this pattern is a Pearly Gates pattern, and all of these designs use Mylar in them. The problem is when you buy a CD, and this particular one, when you purchase it, it has all kinds of embroidery on it. Katie, can you hold this while I grab the CD? So if you, and I had actually done this when we were still at Broad Street, but Pearly Gates known for their Mylar. So if you turn it over, you see all the designs that are on here. And the question that I get from people that come into the shop that aren't familiar with embroidery is, okay, I've got these designs, but what do I do with them? So you can put them on a t-shirt, you can put them on a bag, you can put them on many things, but I wanted it in a quilt. Now, this one, if you actually went to their website, they have all kinds of ideas on how to do it. But if you look at this, this is the design, and it's added a piece on the side and a piece across the top. So this is really just squares, all cut to the same size with a side border and a long border. So you don't have to have a pattern in order to use your quilted embroidery squares. So I like this because it's really simple. I just did all the blocks, cut them to size, added my sashing, and you're done. So it doesn't get easier than that. Okay, if you don't know, you're going to start going into the quilt shop now, and you're going to look. You're going to look, and what you're looking for is quilt designs that have big squares. So this is, Kathy, do you remember this pattern?
Slideshow. I do. I love this pattern. This is such a cute pattern.
This pattern is slideshow, and this one's gigantic.
Oh my gosh.
But again, you could take any of your embroideries. So picture this quilt, and you do an embroidery in every square, or you do an embroidery in random squares. So, I mean, I could have, this reminds me of the Southwest, so I could have taken Southwestern designs, stitched them, and I don't have to do them in every block. I could just do them in some of the blocks. So when I did this, I just liked the colors of it, but looking at it now, I wished I had put some embroidery or at least some the quilting designs that are in your embroidery machine. So you can see how easy this would be to do.
So Fran Simon asked if we could show us the back of some of the quilts, but I don't think that the back of the quilts show anything about
Not yet.
embroidery.
No, it doesn't.
Not
So
yet,
we're
she
just-
says, so
yes.
hang tight.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So let me give you that one. I don't
I
think.
didn't know I was gonna get a workout today. I'm like, hold it. No, it's good.
Sorry. Okay, I don't
So cute.
think there's anybody here who's probably not done city blocks.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So once you've done a log cabin quilt, a lot of our newbies graduate to city blocks. So if you look at this, you can see where the city blocks are. They're the butterflies. So we got, and this again, this is older fabric. This was also from Broad Street, but
She's been doing this a long
it'll
time.
be 10 years. So, okay, but you can see that there's butterflies in here. So what I did was I took the city blocks pattern, and in each of the city blocks, I took and did the butterfly. And this is Anita Good Designs antique butterflies. So I had the pattern for embroidery, which didn't really have a quilt with it. And then I took the city blocks, and so what I did was I pulled the colors that are in the fabric, went ahead and stitched those in the blocks, and then cut those to whatever size called for on the original pattern. And now I've got a beautiful one-of-a-kind quilt. So again, very easy. Like I said, the previous quilt was the slideshow that has the really big blocks in it. So anything that has big blocks combined with small blocks gives you a very interesting quilt. Lots going on. It's just, I don't know, this is really one of my favorites. So there's that one. Okay, and this is an OESD design. Every girl loves shoes,
Oh my
and some
gosh.
of you may have seen this one hanging here. But anyways, all of these shoes were in the pattern, and this was actually the pattern that was given with it. But if you remember Kathy's video from last week, all of her blocks were set on point, and when you set things on point, it gets big really quick. So these, the shoes, are set on point. This is all embroidery, so it's machine applique, done on the embroidery machine. And I had an extra block left, so that's one of my sayings. Life is short, buy the shoes, and buy them in every color. So,
There was another question about whether or not you do the embroidery first and then assemble the quilt.
I do. So I always do my embroidery first. And I'm going to tell you, when you're doing embroidery like this, always interface the background fabric with SF101. You're going to get a much flatter stitch out. You're going to be much happier, and everything's going to lay flat when you finish. But if you think of Kathy's quilt from last week, these are just square blocks, but I've actually done them on point, and it's assembled in rows on a 45-degree angle. But think outside the box. I mean, just so much fun that you can do. This is just a small wall hanging.
He's on his side.
Oh, sorry. I can't see. So anyway, something like this, sometimes you start stitching them out and you're like, okay, I'm good. You know?
You didn't want a whole quilt of this one.
And honestly, there was a place that we needed on the wall at the shop. So I'm like, okay, 4 blocks is good. It's enough to see what is going on. And this one, literally when I got finished with it, I just stitched in the ditch. And then I stitched using my seam guide here. So it just went together really, really fast. And, you know, it's just good. This can also be a table topper. Everything doesn't have to go in a quilt, but I want you to know how easy it is to turn your embroideries into a quilt.
Can you tell them what SF101 is again?
So SF101 is a woven interfacing. It's cotton, and it's fusible on one side. So what I like to do is take that, iron it to the back side of my background fabric, and you want to fuse it on nice and solid. You want to make sure it's really fused on there. And so you're going to have a layer of SF101, and then you're still going to use your stabilizer, whichever kind of stabilizer you choose. but the SF101 stays in there. If I were doing this quilt, I would also then probably use SF101 on my borders because it makes everything the same weight. And when I've sent stuff off to long arm quilters to be quilted, they really appreciate the fact that we don't go from something that is stabilized to something that isn't, and you get better tension when you're using your long arm machine. Okay, this is one of my favorites, and we actually did a class on this. So I'm going to show you how we can combine two patterns. Oh. So this started out, and of course I like girly girl dresses. So this was a pattern that we got into the shop, and this is what the pattern was supposed to look like. And I actually wanted to be able to add these designs because they kind of matched, and these are micro thread. Micro thread. So this is a micro thread collection. And so I'm like, wow, I want to incorporate this somehow with this dress pattern. So what I did was I took the side lights pattern, and the side lights pattern, do you have that in you?
Pam has very fertile imagination. She loves to combine one pattern with a set of designs with another pattern, and she creates all these incredible.
Thinking outside of the box. This is the side lights pattern that we use when we get a panel print in. And so most of the time in the panel, with the panel prints, there's coordinating fabrics. So you would add those in the little squares on the design. Well, I was like, I'm going to put my dress in the middle, and then I just didn't want all this whiteness here. So I literally just took a piece of gray, I took a piece of paper, folded it in half, and just added these curves. Just drew them on. If you fold the fabric in half or the paper in half, it makes the same curve on both sides. And then I used my blanket stitch on there. And then these little places here, and you can't see it probably as well as we can see it here, but this micro thread, it almost looks like these little designs were etched on the fabric.
They are cute.
Yeah, so it's just kind of fun. It's a different way. Also, her little sash, it was just a sash, but I wanted mine to be kind of 3D, and I added some crystals. Why are you laughing?
So they want to know when they're going to see you in a girly girl dress because you always wear pants or leggings. She wears really fancy high heels and dresses too. We just haven't done an event this year.
I love girly dresses, but you know, I also like my Jeep. Come on.
That's right.
So, but anyways, this was really fun. So again, just thinking outside the box, what can I put in these big areas? How do I feature my embroidery? So that's that one. Now, this one is really thinking kind of crazy outside the box, but
Oh, show them your label. Show them the backside first.
Oh my God.
This is impressive. This is impressive.
So Kathy said, can you find something with the label? And I'm like, well, this is one of my labels.
This is Pam's quilt label. This is not for the faint of heart. It's an amazing story
Well, let
that.
me tell them the front first.
Okay.
And then they can. So, anyways, these are little Lorelei designs, and this is kind of, well, I call it the quilt. Cougar Nation meets menopause. So, I love these little ladies because, yeah, I just like them because they're so awesome. So, anyways, this was also when I was meeting Mel. So, anyways, we've got, there's Mel.
Oh, this is Mel. That's Mel.
Now, that's not really Mel, but anyways, when I was meeting him, I see all these women, and you know, like, not all guys, but they like want the perfect little woman, right? So the perfect woman's way down here in the corner.
That's the perfect woman.
But anyways,
Here's the rest of us. Oh, there's a question if I got my quilt quilted yet. Flo, you know that's a rude question because no, I still haven't sewn my back together, but it's coming.
So anyways, just to let you guys know, this was an actual quilt pattern that was supposed to use a focal fabric, right? And so what I did is instead of putting the pretty fabric in here, I decided to put my ladies in there and frame them. So as I'm stitching these little ladies out, I have laughed and laughed and laughed. And I kept thinking about, you know, the guy who wants the perfect woman, but he has all these to choose from. So anyways, that's the poem. Because while I'm sitting there watching everything stitch out, these were my thoughts at the time. So I wrote this entire poem and it had to go on here.
God.
So anyways,
It's a long story. I don't know that we want to recite the whole thing here.
We might have to post it.
But you can see I think we should post this on Facebook so you guys can actually see her story. She's creative not only in the quilting arena, but also in the poetry arena.
But anyway, but you can see, instead of a label, you can do a label, but you can also just leave a history. And believe it or not, it also makes your quilt more valuable, which I found out by doing some of my quilts. If Kathy wants to spin around to show them, this is like extreme embroidery here. And that is all thread that's in there. I mean, every bit of thread. And Kathy had the quilt appraised, and that has almost 4 million stitches in it. But when it was appraised, one of the things that the appraiser commented on, that it had a label on there. And every quilt has a story, and if you put your quilt label on, it lets them at least know who made it, where it was made, what it was called, and when it was completed. So anyways, that also has a quilt label on it. And no, I don't put them on every quilt, but...
There was a question about your ladies, if they were all embroidered or were they appliqued?
No, that's all thread.
All thread.
It is all thread. There is no... Anyway, so I'm getting ready. I started my second one, but it hasn't been finished yet. And there's this is Cougar Nation Goes to Prom. So anyways, I've got the ladies all put together, but I haven't done the guys yet. So yeah, I know. It's kind of, yeah, this is why I don't sleep at night, because
These ladies are great. Love their hair.
I know. Aren't they adorable? I mean, if we all could look so good, right? So check out these dresses.
Check out those cheeks.
I know.
Yeah, they have
I
big
know.
cheeks.
They're just so fun. Okay, so anyways, let's say that I never get around to finishing this. And so what happens is sometimes you stitch out a block and you're like, yep, I like it. It's really, really cute. But no, I'm not going to finish them. What do you do with them? So I'm going to give you some ideas there. My favorite thing to do is turn it into a pillow. So this was an Anita Good design, and these are huge, and so I like them individually, but I didn't like them all together. So, but after you stitch them out, it's like, I've got to do something with it. So you put on a little border, you put on a pillow back, and they're beautiful. So we have, I think we have a whole set of these sitting here, but just really, really easy to do. These are a couple of Claudia Donnell's designs, and so again, I didn't want to do a whole quilt, so just framed a couple of them, and I actually forgot how big the lettering was, so some of them have really large. Oh my god! So the label takes up half of the quilt.
But they know who did it.
Go big or go home, right? So this one I got, a little bit smaller, but I think I have as much fun sometimes doing labels as I do the quilts. And I just have a few more that I'll show you. These were some Holly Hill designs. And so again, there wasn't a whole quilt to do it with. I think the CD just came with one central motif and some other things. But just offsetting them with a little bit of a border makes it
They're so cute.
so easy to do. So, just hanging
This
them
one's sideways.
together. Oh, sorry.
Rotate ya.
Just tilt the camera, Kat.
Just stand them on their head.
They are cute. So simple. I love how you offset the border just a little bit.
Yeah, they're just kind of
Super simple, but cute.
And then another thing is that when you have really large designs and you don't want to complete them, so this is a Angie Steveson lunchbox quilt. And so I actually did the whole quilt, and this is her pattern, turning it into a table runner. And one of the ladies stopped in yesterday who had created like 3 rather large blocks, and she made them into a table runner. So not everything has to be a quilt, but we just want you to, find ways that you can turn things really quickly into quilts. So I'm going to grab these patterns real quick, and then these are some that I just pulled. So we talked about side lights, using that as a, if you have something really large that you want to feature. But City Blocks is the one that I use for the butterflies. This one we also have here ×3, and I could see this one using the large blocks to do some embroidery in. So I really love this pattern for incorporating embroidery. And then this is another one that we had, Town Square. So if I want to use my embroidery in my quilt, I will look for something that has large blocks where I don't have to do all of these as embroidery, and I'm going to, spread the embroidery out. So then that brings us back to the lovely quilt that Jill did. And so I really like this. And so as soon as I saw this one hanging today, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see things going on already. So one of the things, Paisley is really big right now in embroidery. So some of the machines have Paisley designs on them, and you can find all kinds of Paisley stitch outs. Not heavy, just like scroll work or, the red work Paisley. So I could see taking something like this, and you could just stitch in the ditch, but then in these black squares, you could use a variegated thread and just do like a Paisley design in here, or something that picks up the circular curves of what's in here. So I like to look at it, because if I can quilt it on my domestic machine, I want to do it because I want to be able to finish what I started. We do send them out, and sometimes we want custom quilting, but if I use embroidery in here, it's really, just as nice as if I had done custom quilting and, paid big money for it.
There's one more question about your, you use the SF101 to stabilize the background, but then when you're doing them in your quilt, what other stabilizer do you use? Tearaway?
And that's a really good question. So if you're going to have something that is really solid embroidery, I like to use either the no-show mesh, but no-show mesh is a cutaway, so what is left behind the image, it's hard to cut it away. It's just really hard to get close. And if I'm not doing, filling in all the extra area, it gets kind of puckered. So what I really like to use is a tearaway, and the tearaway that I like is Stitch and Wash. We do sell medium tearaway, and I loved it, but when you crunch, like when you squeeze your quilt, it almost feels crunchy. Where the Stitch and Wash, it says it's a wash away, but you have to wash it multiple times before it would really go away. I mean, you could literally soak your block all night and it doesn't go away. But when you tear that away, and it's going to support all your stitches, after you tear it away, if you squeeze your, crumple up your quilt, you're not going to feel it in there. So it just depends on the application. If I'm quilting the entire block, I love using the no-show mesh, because it doesn't get wrinkled or anything. But even if you get the fusible no-show mesh, it's not permanently fusible, it's only temporarily fusible. So when it comes off, sometimes it puckers under the quilt. So, any other questions?
I think for that, seemed like that was good. The Lorelei Ladies, are they still available, that software design CD?
That we'd have to check.
Yeah.
And I was going to check it before, but I'm pretty sure that we can still get those.
Yes. So if you saw anything you liked today,
yeah, call us, we'll research it.
call us and we'll find you. This is a collection from how many years?
I've been with Kathy, it'll be 10 years in the fall. And like you guys know, I love embroidery. I love everything embroidery. So anytime I can put embroidery into something. So, and I guess because when people come in, I'll say, are you interested in embroidery or just sewing? And they'll say, oh, I don't like embroidery. And I'll say, let me show you what you can do. And a lot of people don't like projects. They go, I only want to do quilts. But when you see how you can incorporate it for quilting, how you can incorporate it just as something to embellish the quilt, there's just so many ways to use it that usually they're at least thinking about it.
Yes.
So.
All right. So thanks, Pam. Thanks for joining us. This is great. All right.
Any questions, call the shop. We're here.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. All right. Take care.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.